Watch my TV show, go see my movie, buy them CDs, cassettes, and albums. They're available in the back. I'm all that in a Hot Wheel track. You can best bet.
Saying that Miracle Mile is a bad film would be the same thing to say about it. There's a completely unlikable protagonist, and there's a leading lady that doesn't feel like she's really leading anything in the film, and the chemistry between the two just comes off as forced, awkward, and just weird, and that's just to name a few. But seeing as though I've been locked in my apartment during this whole quarantine, I've decided to try my best to see the good in this film, however little there may be. Compared to other films being released in '88, it wasn't anywhere close to blockbusters like John McClane's first outing in Die Hard, or John Carpenter's They Live, Eddie Murphy's classic Coming to America, Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, the near-perfect Akira, or the adorable My Neighbor Totoro. So it came to no surprise that Miracle Mile underperformed at the box office in 1988. But what if I were to tell you that this film would have been successful if it had been released 4 years prior to 1988?
What?
Explain yourself.
The idea of a nuclear wasteland has become part of pop culture and even romanticized in today's media. That's because in the early 80s, we had a few nuclear close calls that scared the shit out of pretty much everyone worldwide. Remember when a Soviet submarine launched a few missiles as a training exercise and America thought it was being fired upon? Or when the Soviet warning system malfunctioned and reported that the US had just fired missiles at Russia? Or when the NATO exercise was mistaken as an act of war by the Soviets and they prepared their nuclear forces? Does anyone remember that? From what I read, it was the closest the world ever came to nuclear war. But I know, you guys are probably wondering, what does any of this have to do with Miracle Mile? It's because films like Threads and The Day After, both of which premiered in the early 80s during the nuclear scare, garnered critical acclaim in their realistic depiction of a nuclear war and the meek life that soon follows after. But sadly, the film I'll be reviewing missed that opportune time and released in 1988, when the last thing anyone wanted to be reminded of was a nuclear war. So people, without further ado, let's finally jump into. So, Miracle Mile follows the story of a musician named Harry and his love interest, a waitress by the name of Julie. After a failed hookup, Harry answers a phone call that happens to be about missiles being launched and heading towards the United States. Armed with this information, Harry sets out to find Julie and get her to safety before it's too late. So the plot sounds great on paper, and it should have been on film, but there's quite a few things that hold this film back for what it could have been. We start the film with Harry playing on his trombone in his attire from much later on in the film. Yet strangely enough, this scene never happens in the film, and it's actually lacking continuity quite a lot, but we'll see that later on. So the film starts from the real beginning, which shows us Harry watching a video on evolution. And for some reason, Harry's face looks like a thumb, but that's neither here nor there. So Harry sees a woman and he proceeds to stalk her, and a corny montage of Harry trying to look cool in front of the girl happens. And it gets to the point where he has to pay children for her to laugh at him.
You guys want to put $1 in here? Okay. Here you go. One for each of us. Just take it, put it in the kitty's nice little...
Hey, all I'm saying is that if he pays kids to unknowingly help him get laid, then what else would he do? Harry proceeds to follow the woman into a gift shop and gives her a look that can only be described as utter thirst. But yet the woman looks back, quietly, acknowledging the thirst. Yet, unbeknownst to the audience, just by showing the tar pit, the film foreshadows how both of the main characters are going to die. That's a bit grim, but I did some research and I found out that the 1993 classic, The Last Action Hero, filmed that crazy bomb sequence in the same tar pits as Miracle Mile. You remember the scene, right? It was a big explosion, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger says some really cool line like,
Silent but deadly.
Unlike the characters in that movie, the characters in this movie are fucked. Julie approaches Harry and somehow they hit it off. Like, even Harry looks low-key pretty surprised. Yet the dramatic irony of all of this is that their impending doom is only less than a day away. How romantic. Aww. Harry somehow manages to take Julie out on a date in the 80s without the crack cocaine of police officers, and everything goes pretty well. The next scene starts with Harry performing with his band. Julie has completely different clothes on, and her grandfather appears from out of the blue with no explanation. After the event, Harry starts fantasizing about his future with Julie.
Take a teaching gig around here at some junior high. See if there's a vacancy in Julie's building.
Harry then meets her grandmother from out of the blue, and a subplot about Julie's grandparents not talking is brought up, but let's just go ahead and be honest.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
After meeting all of her family members, Harry and Julie agree to meet up at her job at 12:15 to hook up, and they proceed to share a kiss. And here it is, the most important scene in the movie. If Harry didn't do what he's about to do right now, there will be no film. And it goes a long way to show just how unlikable his character really is. Harry takes out a cigarette while fantasizing about Julie when he spots a woman feeding birds outside of his apartment. Due to the shopping cart, I'm going to assume that this woman is homeless, and I'm sure Harry put that together as well. So for some reason, he just throws the cigarette down at the woman.
Bruh.
Why the fuck did you do that?
Little does Harry know that just by flicking that one cigarette, he essentially started a chain of events that would cause the deaths of numerous innocent people. And here we go. Bird picks up the cigarette and somehow causes a blackout in Harry's apartment complex, which inadvertently resets Harry's alarm clock so he can't meet up with Julie. Just from that one cigarette. Julie waits for Harry, not knowing that he's still asleep because of bad karma, and she goes home and decides to do drugs to cope with the rejection. After waking up late, Harry panics, realizing that he might not get laid tonight, and he heads over to Julie's job. Once Harry makes it there, he hears a phone in the booth ringing, but he ultimately ignores it and he goes into the diner. Harry walks in and sees a cross-dresser and a drunk debating over the best food in the area. Julie's friend gives Harry shit for standing her up. Harry explains the situation, which Julie's friend thinks is bullshit. She eventually gives him the number to call Julie to apologize. Harry orders some food before calling Julie, and two street cleaners walk in discussing perverted fantasies of a businesswoman named Londa, who soon walks in afterwards. We are introduced to Fred, the cook, and get a subtle taste of foreshadowing with the book being read by Londa called Gravity's Rainbow. But what is Gravity's Rainbow? Turns out it's a post-World War II novel centering around the dispatch of V-2 rockets from Germany. And what exactly is a V-2 rocket? It was the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile. Londa hasn't even said anything yet, and she's already a more interesting character than both Julie and Harry. Harry leaves a message for Julie and all seems well until the phone rings. And then the best scene in the film happens.
This is it. This is really it. This is the big one. Thor Arthur 66 ZZD. You know, like I told you what would happen if it ever came down? Well, it is. We don't know why. I mean, why would we, huh? It's for real, Dad. It's no drill. We shoot our wad in 50 minutes.
When Harry answers the phone, a guy named Chip tells him about an upcoming nuclear attack. Harry thinks it's a joke until the guy named Chip gets blasted on the other end of the line.
Just tell anyone.
This is a joke, right?
Yes, sir. No, sir. I was just checking the circuit, sir. Wait.
Harry is baffled yet remains skeptical that any of what just happened was real. Then one of the coldest lines in cinema history was uttered into existence.
What happened to Chip? He was just joking, right?
Forget everything you just heard and go back to sleep.
Confusion, disbelief, fear, terror. There's now a sense of urgency in the air. Harry now has 70 minutes until the US is going to be attacked by nuclear missiles. The tone has switched from a cheesy 80s rom-com to the last 60 seconds of a Katamari level. Shit has gotten real in record time. From here on out, the film keeps this energy and doesn't let it go. Harry then has a Joker moment. Harry walks back into the diner with the same expression that Republicans had when Joe Biden won. Conversations continue on around him, but as Harry tries to eat, he starts leaking. Julie's friend notices that something is up and approaches him to pour him some coffee, and Harry proceeds to grab her forearm tightly.
Kel, I just have one question. What? Why?
Is this what Julie has to look forward to in the future with him? I get that he's under a lot of pressure just sitting on that type of information, but does that justify grabbing at a waitress? Harry starts to come to the realization that what he heard on the phone could have very well been true. Harry proceeds to interrupt everyone's conversations to tell him about what he just heard on the phone. Blowing wads, the threat of nuclear war, a guy named Chip. Harry goes off, but the look on everyone's face in the diner, priceless. As Harry continues, Fred looks at Wanda and proceeds to follow in the footsteps of Detective James Carter.
Lee, let me introduce you to Carter's theory of criminal investigation. Follow the rich white man.
Follow the rich white man?
Exactly, now you're learning.
Or, in our case, the rich white woman, Wanda, because after this, Fred tries his best to get confirmation with her. And as Wanda comes to the realization that what Harry was saying could be true, Fred goes off the rails.
Come on, anybody with eyes to hate this, man. It's inevitable.
Can't be.
Hey! I'm very serious about this shit. Now you tell me now. You're joking, huh?
Come on, man.
Leave him alone, Freddy. He's just drunk. Shut the fuck up! Shut up! If you are, you tell me now.
Why in hell would I make up this story, huh? Look, if you want me to say so, I will. But
what?
Fred, put the gun away.
But what?
it's true.
I ain't taking no chances. Joe, get the drop!
Louise, I never seen him riled up like that before.
You're joking, huh?
Come on, man.
Leave him alone, Freddy. He's just drunk.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
The music almost seems diegetic as everyone proceeds to the truck with the thought of a nuclear war on their minds. Wanda reveals that she has connections.
I know it did. Is that the code for it?
It's possible.
How the hell would you know, lady?
Because I used to date a guy who worked at the Rand Corporation.
She then offers everyone an airplane ride to safety, essentially saving them while asking for literally nothing at all. Harry grabs the waitress and forces her to give him Julie's address. Everyone gets into the truck and starts planning for their future.
Mike, I want you and Susie to make a list for me. People who we want to bring along. Scientists, leaders, great minds. I want it in 5 minutes, okay?
Jesus.
Harry then gets his car stolen. Harry thinks that Julie is really important and that they need to go and pick her up, in which Fred is like, okay, sure, whatever, just get in. Fred tries to leave Harry behind, but Harry manages to get on the truck. Meanwhile, a lot of important decisions are being made on the truck.
Danny Berrigan and his brother. Yeah, Bobby Seale, Dick Gregory.
You got these people's phone numbers?
Harry notices that they're going in the wrong direction from Julie's house. Harry gets up to confront Fred, and this happens.
Hey, we should be in Park La Brea. What? We gotta get Julie. Who's Julie? Who are you? Who are you?
No, but seriously though, who is this guy? He's not in the diner when Harry tells everyone about the phone call, but he is shown here getting in the truck with who could be his girlfriend, so it seems as if he was standing outside the diner and then overheard what was happening and just decided to go with the crew. I'm just gonna assume that this is the luckiest man in 1988 and just leave it at that.
Listen, you said you were gonna go get Julie. I don't give a fuck.
Harry overhears that a helicopter will be leaving at 5 minutes to 5, with or without him. Fred tells Harry that this could be the end of the United States as they know it, and that he wasn't going to waste time on picking up Harry's one-dimensional booty call. Harry gets booty hurt at the facts and proceeds to think it's a good idea to pick up a gun and aim it at someone who's trying to help you and driving a truck. But even after being threatened with a gun to his head, Fred looks as if he's more annoyed than anything else.
I don't give a fuck.
Fred tells him that he's not stopping, so Harry has to jump, tuck, and roll. Armed with a loaded gun, Harry fumbles his way through the truck, which could potentially go off at any moment. But when has having a loaded gun in a moving vehicle ever gone well in movies? Then we get one last look at this interesting group of characters. Did they pick up Bobby Seale and Dick Gregory? Did they make it to Antarctica? How much more about the bombs did Wanda know about? How many more people knew about the bombings? And the most important one, did anyone in this group survive this? All of these questions and more are left unanswered as Harry tosses his dumb ass out the truck.